The episode's theme, Power and Emily's monologue, was not that bad cause they had all these powerful women in here. I will talk about that later when he get to her new target, Judge Barnes and his wife, Patricia. This episode comes at the right time. When I first watched this season, and you must remember that in 2012 we had to wait 1 week for only one lousy episode. And in Germany it was even more hard. Since we had to wait till they finished the German synchro, there could have been more than a year between 2 seasons. Especially when the show was not that popular in Germany as it was in the States. Cause one German TV channel had to purchase the rights for the broadcast here in Germany. Anyway, when I first saw the season till this episode 1 was almost giving up. Since season 1 was far much stronger and my beloved flashbacks had not been taken place that much in the last episodes. And we had seen no real takedown in the known pattern. So I was very happy how this episode turned out. But now let us dive in. The beginning of this episode was nice because it was something different, seeing no close-up or one of the houses from the beach side. Though this little training scene and their conversation was nothing special, I liked the cinematography with the black background and the fog. When she is with Aiden, it always seems as if Emily can be her true self. About Jack's wedding gift. This was such a nice idea. Too bad they did not really capture this emotional hold of the sea glass for Jack and Amanda. Since Fauxmanda tried to find it in season 1 and Jack gives her this necklace for the wedding, the sea glass is somehow always connected to these two. Maybe a flashback with little Jack and Amanda playing treasure hunt instead of the repeated flashback with the two Sammy and David on the beach. Would have shifted the emotional connection towards real Amanda in season 4. Spoiler alert. Cause when he gave Emily this piece of sea glass I immediately thought about Fauxmanda. Anyway, I like that she immediately jumps on that train and is more than happy. Though it was strange that they still planning a wedding with this threat of the Ryan brothers at the door. But I guess this just fits to Jack's character. He seems to be the one who eats into it all and buries his head in the sand. At least in season 2 he does. About Victoria's new style. I like that they gave Victoria a broader range of outfits. In season 1 she wore these tight dresses in almost every scene. She looks gorgeous no doubt, and Madeleine Stowe's figure is marvelous. Even more for a woman in her age. But this skirt and shirt combination makes her look almost official. If you would be blunt, like a secretary, but I like that. Till now there was no big Grayson event but the shooting in the last episode. Something that is missing from season 1, 2, the big parties. Anyway, she has no real reason to suit up and so she is wearing something that is not so stylish but more comfortable. Spoiler alert. I like how she downdresses in season 4 when she is together with David. For me that was the first time Victoria wore something that I would actually consider to wear. Another thing, I knew that the comeback of the Infinity Box when Emily showed it to Aiden would mean we get another takedown. I was only deceived how long it took for them to give it to us. And again, the reason why I like this episode so much is because the initiative plays not such a big role in it. They should have dropped this plot as soon as they could, but they stick with it till the end, unfortunately. Another thing about Emily's laptop. At first I thought the design was cool cause it looks like it would be a very stable and resistant casing. But in fact it is just a fancy frame for an ordinary laptop. What I like the most about her new target is that we get for the first time someone who tried to do the right thing. He maybe got killed, but it shows that at least some of the people who were not part of the conspiracy were suspicious. As always with these conspiracies, the crucial part is how can they manipulate the truth for so long and at this high level without being unmasked. There had to be someone who at least tried to dig deeper. First we got Mason in season 1 who chose the wrong path. Now we have Padma, who paid the ultimate price for being on David's side. About Aiden and Emily. Again, one of my favorite scenes with the two. I cannot get enough of these little intimate scenes between them. It is surprising how they can make us fall in love with those two with such little scenes and almost no big sex scene. We only see them embrace and kiss. And I love those wide views of the beach house with the wooden stairs. It really gives you this homely feeling. About Emily's new red dress. First of all, I like her feminine hairstyle in this season. That has really improved since season 1. Since there is no big party, we have not seen her with an updo. But the subtle curls and the little braid really underline her feminine look. Now about the new red dress. I like how they use the red color in season 2. From season 1 we learned that there will be a takedown when she is wearing this color. Because Emily wore her first red dress with red earrings at her takedown of Senator Tom Kingsley. And again she wore red when Jack confessed his love to her. So they use both symbolic meanings, the love theme and the function of a red flag as warning before danger. You can say red is her color because she is using the red sharpie, and red stands for the most powerful feelings of passion and anger. Yet in season 2 Emily is not only wearing red when we get a new takedown like in this episode. She is also wearing it when she pursues Daniel and wants his attention. It was most obvious in the first episode when Daniel saw her for the first time again. Not to forget the Grayson wedding with Conrad's arrest. And now in this scene and later when she is with Daniel and Aiden, she is wearing red again. The dress itself is not that extraordinary. I appreciate how they like to give the fashion some special details this season, like those metallic details we saw too on Ashley's red dress in the last episode. But there were only a few dresses I really liked on Emily in season 2. I really loved her sporty look and the camouflage with this light color dresses, and later her really official look with trousers and blazers. That would have been something I would wear, too. In this season it is a strange mix with those not very extravagant dresses that try to have some edge, and real casual clothes with t-shirts and jeans. Something I really hated about some of her dresses in this and the next season. They were far more revealing. Her red dress at the Grayson wedding had such a low neckline that on some pictures you think her breasts are in danger to fall out. And that red dress in season 3 really screamed for attention, which was nice for the scene. But I always have a problem with the code sex sells. Sometimes when the ratings of shows are falling, you can really feel that they are trying desperately to make it happen with those assets. And I think that is not a good signal for women. To be fair, in teenage shows like The Vampire Diaries they do that to the men too, by showing them shirtless, and even here in season 3 of Revenge. They use Jack's abs to get the attention of the female and gay viewers, like with the trained body of the actor who plays Patrick. I wonder if there was a competition going on between Nick Wexler and Justin Hartley. Anyway, I strayed too far. Now we get back to the actual plot here in this scene. It is funny how few scenes Emily and Victoria have in the first 2 seasons. They really dose their encounters, and mostly Daniel was there, too. So we seldom see the two alone. In season 1 it is due to her strategy of getting Daniel away from her. And in this season it is due to the plot. Since she is observing Victoria and Conrad most of the time via surveillance footage, there is no need to see her in person. And of course she has still the problem that she is not officially back together with Daniel yet. So she cannot walk through Grayson Manor as she used to in the last season. Another reason why the real revenge plot was so dull and reduced in this season. How can she probably do something revengey when she has no access and when her main focus is to gather information about a new player on the field? Anyway, I like their little chat and how they always insult each other with these friendly smiles. By watching it the first time you only feel slightly unhinged and think, was that really meant this rude, or did I just think that? But watching it twice you understand what really is the meaning behind Emily's and Victoria's words. Their words have always a hidden message. About the cupola, I do not like the shots with Victoria standing alone and some kind of lurking inside the cupola. But the shots from the other side with this great view of the ocean I really enjoyed. I think it is in this season when we see her and Conrad talk and see a sunset over the ocean. That really makes you want to sit and just enjoy the view. 'Cause the cupola just seems to have the perfect height. If I would own such a house I would always enjoy the sunrise at morning breakfast and the sunset in the evening. That would really make my day. And here in this scene it gives Emily a nice frame. Those white some kind Greek pillars and her tunic red dress with the blue ocean behind her. As I said in the very first episode, one like that very much. The subtle references to Greece as the birth nation of theatre with these references to ancient Greece fashion and design. I always see Emily as kind of a modern version of Electra. 'Cause since the classical Greek dramas Electra is the personification of vengeance itself. And in her history also was a family conflict but with her real mother and her stepfather involved. So the roles are just reversed in Revenge since Victoria almost became Amanda's stepmother but was her mother-in-law in fact. It was interesting that Victoria wanted to work together with Emily again for Daniel's sake. She must really fear for him to make this step. 'Cause I am sure that she already hates Emily and thinks she has a bad influence on her son. So despite their handshake I and most of the audience knew that this would only be a temporarily truce. I must admit season 1 and 2 were the one seasons where I often felt sorry for Victoria. First of all because of all the scenes where she mourned David though she was the one who betrayed him. But I can understand that she feels in some way the same loss as Emily with his death. Or at least she thinks so. And in season 2 despite all of her deeds I felt sorry for her because Conrad really played her and used her protection instincts against her. She was so blinded by her fear for Daniel that she did not see what was really going on behind the scenes. By the way, I think this episode was most compelling plot-wise since we had a clear structure with those two storylines. Emily trying to win back Daniel and her new target Judge Barnes. I love how everything falls into Emily's place. At the right time Victoria wants to have her on her good side and invites her to dinner. I wonder how she would have pulled it off if Daniel was not already thinking about getting her back. Then she would have to resume her surveillance on Grayson Manor. But as I said before, I really prefer her to take action and be part of the plot instead of just watching and commenting it. A word about Patricia Barnes. It was thrilling to see that the wife this time was not just a appendage. She really played a big role in this episode. 'Cause that was always something that bothered me in season 1. As Emily took down all those men it was intriguing to see this battle of the sexes. Here the young seemingly innocent woman who takes all those aggressive and powerful men down. And the women, like the wife of Senator Kingsley, were just bystanders. So I was happy that they broke up this pattern in season 2. Maybe this was another theme they did not convey, this good powerful women. We have Helen Crowley as the representative of the initiative and since season 1 Victoria and Emily who are constantly plotting and scheming. About Charlotte and Declan this little scene is still nice to watch. Finally they give this pairing some substance. I think this was the first scene of the two where they not showed how they fought and break up or kissed and make up. For instance, they had a real plot in this scene beside Declan trying to hook her up or Charlotte being hard to catch. And I like that it is Declan who finds this out. Jack seemed really helpless with this Ryan problem. He could use all the help he can get. Though I must admit as Nolan was involved I was really annoyed that he did not see all those red flags and immediately called Emily for help. She surely would have handled this situation much better and got him out of this mess in 3 seconds. I can understand why Jack did not turn to her because of his pride and he does not know about Emily's hobby yet. But why Nolan, who seemed to be well aware of how dangerous those Ryan brothers are, was not so quick with calling for her help is still a riddle for me. Instead, Declan, Charlotte and Fauxmanda have to deal alone with the Ryans after what happens in the next couple of episodes. That seemed to be the worst outcome for this. About Fauxmanda and Jack, again, I like how she stands up for herself and her family. In this season, Fauxmanda is really true to herself and very brave. I think she and Emily aka Amanda are the most consistent characters in the show. About Aiden's and Emily's fake breakup. This was brilliant and so obvious but fun to watch. Especially with the following scene in which Nolan reacts to their so-called fake-up. By the way, I really love Conrad's new look with Bermudas and polo shirts. He really looks like a pensioner in Florida. Just so funny. And Henry Czerny seemed to had a lot of fun in season 2. He had a really great humor and some very funny lines this season. In fact, he almost was competing with Nolan.
Speaking of lost assets, looks like Takeda's boy's following right in your footsteps. That Emily's a real man-eater.
Emily's smile at the end of the scene was just like the cherry on top. This scene showed two things. How good revenge can be when they stick to the original plot. And how much I missed this by watching season 2 so far. Another thing they made better in this episode. The transition to the next scene felt much more organic. Not just like a puzzle of different pieces they put randomly together. Daniel tries to dig deeper to uncover secrets of his father's business. And turns to Nolan for help. While he is gossiping about Aiden and Emily, this leads to Nolan going back to Emily's beach house. By the way, I love Nolan's style. He really looks like a combination of a British dandy and a comic figure of the 50s. He looks not at all like a serious businessman, but it suits his character that he obviously liked to experiment with fashion and colors. And his limerick about bros and hoes is just hilarious.
Well, bros before hoes only works if he's not still in love with the hoe, bro.
Nolan's and Aiden's reaction to Emily assuring she has no feelings anymore for Daniel shows what will be a conflict in the next 2 seasons. In this season, Emily has problems with her emotions because she cannot define if she is still in love with Daniel or not. I think it has much to do with Aiden's return. 'Cause first she was rejecting him but then opened up and fell in love with him again. So it is harder for her to draw the line whether she is falling in love again or if her feelings for Daniel are just a memory of the love she felt 1 year ago. Spoiler alert. And in season 3 it seems as if she is really hating Daniel, especially because her hate for this family is on the highest level than ever. But also because of the things Daniel did to Aiden in the season 2 finale. About Emily and Daniel, I really like how he looks at her. I think deep in his heart Daniel was always in love with her. It is the reason why she could hurt him that much and why it was so easy for her to always win him back. As I said multiple times, her behavior towards Daniel in season 2 and 3 is really one of her biggest failures. Daniel and Charlotte were causalities in this war between Emily and the Graysons. I know they had done some pretty awful things too. But both Grayson children tried to be good and find the right way in life. Daniel and Charlotte were always on their best behavior when they had times in which they were free of the influence of their parents. Especially Victoria always brought the most bad sides of her daughter and son on the surface. And it is so odd how kind Victoria is towards Emily. They really made it obvious and funny how she tries to play Cupid. This dinner scene was really one of the best scenes in season 2. It was like a reminder of old times and made me miss season 1 even more. How Emily tries to bring the conversation to her favorite topic, the David Clarke trial, and tries to startle Barn. And with the close-ups on her face and the camera following her view, we see again through her perspective. This I missed the most in season 2 so far. How the audience feels like Emily's accomplice brings us her mission far more near than all those petty little details she talks with Aiden. I still love the twist at the end of the episode that it is actually his wife who brings Judge Barnes down. Emily just had to confirm her suspicion and push the right buttons. I know it was for her revenge agenda, but if you follow the looks she and Patricia share at the end, you really get to see that Emily is touched and wanted to help Patricia to break free from this unhealthy relationship. And by the way, it is a shame that Victoria overlooks this bad behavior of Barnes. She surely noticed it at the dinner, since Victoria is as experienced in detecting details as Emily is. If she would have been a true friend to Patricia, she would at least try to show her concern and talked with her. I am sure this was not the first time she saw Barnes treating her like that. It is interesting too that he is always referred to as Judge Barnes while she has a real forename. Underlines her important role in this episode. About Emily and Fauxmanda, I like how nonchalant this scene is. The difference between season 1 and even the beginning of season 2 is really big. She might not be involved in Emily's revenge agenda, but the fact alone that Emily talks with her about those topics is a huge change in their relationship. And as always, when you are working on something, it is a good start to talk with someone else about it. The talk with Fauxmanda really helps Emily to see her target and his wife clearer. And since Nolan is not that much around since he has problems of his own, Fauxmanda grew into the role of Emily's confidant. That was a nice choice, even though it just lasted for this episode. I wish we could have seen more of this, since Fauxmanda is not that dumb. In season 1 with Mason and at the beginning of this season with the hunt after Emily's mother, Fauxmanda proved what an asset she can be. I like that we see with this takedown again how Emily is digging up information. As I said earlier, it is good to see her back on track and actually doing something to bring her revenge agenda forward. About Helen playing with Aiden. One thing I hate about this woman is not only her way of dressing and putting too much makeup on. It is really bad and sad how she is toying with Aiden and making him believe he could save his sister. By the way, it is really annoying that we have to believe the Initiative is such a powerful organization and yet they cannot see Emily's and Aiden's connection. I mean, that she guarded her true identity very well is not the problem. But they know all this stuff about Aiden and do not wonder why he and Emily were involved. Even Victoria detects how close Emily and Aiden are and wonders why there is a connection to Flight 197 within this liaison. How could they not connect these dots, since Aiden is sneaking up on Emily in the beach house still after she got back together with Daniel? Or did they assume that Emily was Aiden's way to get closer to Daniel and Grayson Global? Anyway, this scene is really bad. Another empty warehouse, and what is it with those leather gloves? Spoiler alert 1. If I think about it, these were the only two things that really made me hate the Initiative. How they destroyed Aiden's and Nolan's life. First, they were responsible for the kidnapping of his sister and her death. Later, they managed to get rid of his father, too. And they killed Padma after recording that cruel video for Nolan. Spoiler alert 2. That may be at all as spectacle as the bomb on Grayson Global. But it was surely more reason to hate these people than bringing down an empty office building which belonged to the most hated family of this show. Anyway, in this scene I really wished Aiden would have jumped on her and killed her right away. Cause after Charlotte, Helen was the most annoying character of season 2. Her character is a strange mixture of businesswoman and domina. About Nolan, Marco and Padma. I really hate how this ménage à trois turned out. Not that I am not happy that Nolan chose Padma over this old fellow, but that he was in fact right and Padma played Nolan all along was something that was hard to stomach for me. especially after he had been screwed by Tyler in season 1. What is it with Nolan's bad luck in love? Seems to be an internal joke between the crew and the audience. In every season, Nolan is deceived by his loved ones. No matter if he chooses a woman or a man, they all break his heart in the end. Spoiler alert. That is why I am so rooting for Louise in season 4. She is the one who does not try to break his heart or go after his back. In fact, she is the one who is fooled by Nolan and Victoria. About Carrion, I know they wanted to make this plot fancy, and hacking and computers are Nolan's thing since the beginning. But it was really too complicated, the whole storyline about Carrion and how they tried to wrap all the missing dots and plot lines with the initiative up. This storyline was the most bad in season 2. It was so confusing how the scheming with Padma and the initiative went back and forth. Isolated scene. Those scenes, especially the takedown of the Falcon and the fall of Grayson Global, were fun. I loved to use that scenes, but they really did not fit in the original storyline and style of revenge. So I was just happy when they chopped this with the end of the season. About Emily's outfit for the takedown. I think this was the worst of her outfits besides of the ones in the flashback episodes. That kind of neckline looks not very good on her, and she looks like a waitress with this black and white outfit. But what I like in this scene with Patricia is that Emily really opens up. I believe her when she says that this letter saved her life. Emily is prone to hold on to written assurance like the diaries of her father, and it makes Patricia's influence even more important. I like that she plays the ball back to her, though it was really obvious what she is trying to do here. But in the end it worked. As always, these episodes and scenes were so good because they took the time to make us understand the motives and feelings of Patricia. I really grew fond of her even though she was just a guest character for this one episode. But she was one of my favorites from season 2. Outing that powerful man in public was a brave and really big step for her. About Jack getting arrested the first time. Spoiler alert. It is some kind of funny that he becomes a police officer in the final season. He was 3 times arrested and had more problems with the police than Emily in the entire show. It was a nice frame for both plot lines. Grayson pursuing to recover from being wrongfully accused, as he said, and the Porter boys being framed by the Ryan brothers, though Declan really broke in and stole something at the beginning of season 2. Jack and him are purely innocent in this case. And of course there is Emily, who tries to finally clear her father's name. I love the fact that she gets closer to this goal with Patricia's help. The only thing that bothers me is that they fail to appreciate this important step in the right way. Spoiler alert. In season 3 they got it with the Revenge Coteers celebrating the news coverage about David and Conrad. Patricia's speech and the for the audience in the room shocking revelations were just perfect. And it was not only a huge piece of the puzzle to clear David's name, it was also a good explanation why Conrad and the initiative felt the need to get rid of David Clarke. They feared he could really get a mistrial and pardon after all those years, so Conrad must have been really desperate to keep him silent, since he would have dragged him down with this. About the red Sharpie being finally back. Something I enjoyed when they brought the red Sharpie back is that they tried to play around with it. I think it was the first time that she cut one part of a red Sharpie picture. It was a nice touch that she keeps both halves, the one with the red crossed out man and Patricia's half. Spoiler alert. Later, when they celebrate Nolan's takedown of the Falcon, she and Nolan cross out the photo simultaneously. Too bad that this was the one and only time she shared her red Sharpie photo, cause after all the help she gets from Aiden and Jack in season 2 and 3, they would have surely deserved the honor to cross out some more with her together. But I think as Nolan is the only one who sees the gaming aspect in this, he is the only one who enjoys this as much as Emily does. By the way, I hated that they failed to show us how she crossed out the Graysons at the end of season 3. That was something I am surely not alone looked forward to in 3 seasons. About Daniel's and Emily's new kiss. I really hate how he is using the image problem of Grayson Global as excuse for getting close to Emily again. He must be that afraid of getting dumped by her. If he really tried to make it right as CEO, he would have done something about the past of his father's business and let the police investigate Grayson Global. Instead, he was unknowingly working together with a terrorist organization and helped to cover up their tracks. But I enjoyed this scene nonetheless. How Emily is again looking at Victoria, who is watching them, only with reversed roles and motives. Now Emily has to show Victoria that she is following their plan, and Victoria seems to reassure her. And that surprise at the end that Aiden was watching them, too, underlined my suspicion by first watching it. This is going to be a huge problem for her relationship with Aiden. Anyway, this episode had everything I love on revenge. A fulfilling takedown and a little mystery. For the fans of Emily and Daniel, they got back together, and for Aiden and Emily shippers like me, it was enough space for both pairings.